Hey everybody, I'm back. So tonight we're going to find gold in South Dakota. I'm going to take you for a tour through a specific area of South Dakota right here in this corner. Some interesting stuff going on there, and I thought I'd talk a little bit about it and why the gold is there. And also a little of the history about an 1879 gold rush that took place in the Black Hills. That's right outside of Rapid City in this area. So for this series, we've been talking about gold maps and what you can do and how you can find where to get started locating gold. I'm going to check in on you right now and see how you're doing online. So everybody, let me know if my audio is coming through okay. And then I will commence with the gold maps for South Dakota. First thing we got to do is kick off the page manager, which, you know, I'm late getting going. Oh, it's been a busy day, busy week. Not like you haven't had a busy day and busy week. So let me know how things are going. This is Prospector Jess, sourdoughminer.com, hunting for gold. We're here to help you find more gold. That's what we're about, and we're taking a tour right now in a series of maps we have live on Facebook right now. And I have all of one comment. 11 people. Sounds coming through good, Jason Wilson says. Thanks, Jason. Appreciate that. And Robert Drabinski, loud and clear. Justin Sanders, hi. So we got CJ Walker's back. Good evening. So let me turn down the volume of this guy. I'll have him here, and you chime in any questions you have about the map, and I'll check back toward the end of the show like we usually do. Let me know if you've got questions and anything else that you have that has come up from other videos you've seen. And we'll see what we can do to address them. If we don't get them in tonight's, it'll give me food for the next few shows. I got enough stuff to go for miles. So this is South Dakota, and one of the interesting things about it is this is pretty wide open prairie over in this area. But on this western border, there's this interesting dark area you can see. The Indians gave it the name the Black Hills. That's how it's interpreted. But basically, it was because it's so heavily forested, or at least it was. It still is to some degree. I actually spent a fair amount of my childhood going up through here because one of the guys who worked with my dad in doing plays and theater had a playhouse up in the Black Hills called the Black Hills Playhouse, of course. And so they would have a show every summer with different people going through, and it was right next to Mount Rushmore, so it was a super popular tourist attraction. But what caught my attention wasn't just that. I was fishing a lot. That was fun as a kid. But I also went around to all of the various gold prospecting places, and I came back here with my wife, a decade or two later, to visit the Homestake gold mine, which I'll point out in this map. But there's some really interesting places in here, and there's definitely lots of gold. But notice out here in the plains, there's not really much gold. Now, as I've pointed out before, there's likely to be gold anywhere along in here that there's any kind of river flow and there's any kind of accretion of alluvium dust. There's going to be flour gold. That's not what people are talking about when they're talking about the Black Hills gold. Different animal entirely. So when we look at that kind of accretion and dust, yes, you can find gold out almost anywhere in the plains, including Nebraska, etc. But it's going to be a different kind of quality than what we're going to dig into tonight. So let's go take a look. Let's zoom in a little bit in the map. So there's Pierre and fantastic lakes and rivers through the center. But what we're looking for is this stuff. That's an awesome arrangement of gold prospects. And there are people up there who have claims and have access. There are clubs. There's all kinds of interesting stuff. And there's a couple of industrial size production units that have been up in this area. Another place I've been is out of Spearfish. I had a cousin-in-law, my wife's cousin, who was out here in Belle Fourche. So he would basically, we went down this canyon, which is unbelievably scenic. So if you get a chance to go up into the Black Hills, make sure you go down the Spearfish Canyon and take pictures looking back, take pictures going forward. It's kind of like the $1 Million Highway in Colorado. It's just way colorful. So, and it's because there's all of this interesting stuff. So take a look. You starting to see something here? Look at the size of those mining works, okay? So this is just incredible stuff all the way through here. Now, let's see if we can see the headworks. This is pretty much open pit in this area. The old Homestake itself was actually a deep-sited, one of the deepest mines in the continental U.S. And so up until it was shut down, which is in the, I think, 80s, 90s. And then now they're looking at trying to open it again. But of course, with all the eco everything, it becomes a major ordeal to do any kind of gold prospecting or mining of this scale in the continental United States anymore. Even though you could probably pretty much legitimize every bit of this on a what we call an international security issue having to do with rare earths, which are found in the same kind of stuff. A lot of the material here in the region is primarily, let's see, there's a whole series of things in the finds from a standpoint of rocks and geology. I wanted to read off something to you here. For some reason I'm not finding it. There we go. So this is a little blurb out of Wikipedia about the Black Hills, but one of the things I want to draw your attention to is this piece at the bottom, which is essentially saying, you know, look, the rocks and minerals in here, Precambrian, Paleozoic, Mesozoic, Cenozoic, and Tertiary. There we go with that Tertiary stuff. A lot of stuff that happened in the Tertiary time frame is associated with gold in multiple places on the continent. And so when that flag comes up, you sort of say, okay, what am I looking for here? Now, you're looking for shales, sandstones, limestones, slate, quartzite, and granite. So really, the only thing in here that is igneous in a sense directly is granite. The rest of those things, the quartzite, you know, is intrusive, but it's a secondary hydrothermal deposit, and it's one of the primary things that'll inject gold as a sulfide or gold ore into stringers, you know, gold itself. And so it's the kind of thing you're looking for. But shale is kind of a different animal. I'll show you a little bit of that, shale, and it also mentions slate. So let me show you a picture. Let's see if I can find it here. So here you got a gold trap in basically what constitutes a series of slate not stringers, but slate runners that go across the creek. So the creek runs from left to right in this picture. Actually, from right to left, it goes downhill. Oh, yeah, I'm pointing the wrong way. So it's going across that, and those little cracks form nice little fissures for gold to get trapped in, like a natural sluice box. So this is one of the things, if you're looking for placer gold, that you'll be looking for. But embedded in that slate and in that shale material can also be gold that was fine gold from prehistoric flows that got hardened into this material in layers. And that's somewhat of what was found associated with some of the metamorphic rocks that came out of the Homestake, which this is a core sample right out of the Homestake gold mine. And see, you can see the layers through here of that kind of material. Well, that's similar to what we're seeing here. This is a more of a schist kind of material, but the idea is, you know, and that's just simply a function of the grain size of the crystals. So the finer they go, the closer they go to slate. But what you're looking for is this kind of old gold concentrator that got reformed by getting smashed at the end of the ocean margins, dumped underneath, and then lifted back up and exposed. And so what we have here is this material very similar to this picture. This is from California, but the same kind of stuff. I found it all over up there around the lakes in the Black Hills. And you can kind of see some of it here in the needles. They show a picture. Let me not draw an arrow down there. Let me move up on this picture so you can see this gorgeous shot of the needles. Oh, I'm not showing it. That's not working. Go back. Give you a bit of the kind of stuff you're going to be looking for up there. Fantastic territory, and it's full of this. Mount Rushmore is made out of a little less crunchy stuff than this, but the same kind of principle. Nice big, you know, batholithic, monolithic kind of monsters that they can actually carve. One of the problems they've run into with Mount Rushmore is, you know, with time, when rocks are cut and exposed to oxygen and weathering, water, ice, you know, things start falling off, like parts of the nose. Not boogers, but, you know, parts of the nose fall off. And so they had to go up a few, you know, about a decade or so ago and do a bunch of reinforcement with a special epoxy resins injected into the rocks to keep the nose in place. Bet they never thought of that when they first put it up there. But that's the nature of landmarks and doing funny things with natural stones. They have a property of doing whatever they darn well please, and if you get in the way, eventually it all ends up as alluvium downhill with the gold out of it. And that's what we're looking for. But I just thought I'd point that out to you. So now back to this gold mine stuff. You can see all of the finds in this area alone is pretty incredible. This is Portland underground occurrence, gold and silver. Here we go, another one. Past producer gold silver, Perseverance mine. Bald Mountain Mining Company, gold silver. So you get a pattern here. It looks like a lot of electrum, which is what gold and silver are. That's usually a liquid or a fluid mixture that can go from almost pure gold to almost pure silver. Take your pick. And so that forms, if it's on the silver side of things, it starts to form what's called electrum, and it hardly even looks gold. So you have to have it tested to see how much gold is in it. But as it alloys further and further, it gets more like what you find in jewelry gold. It's not, it's 14 karat or so. It's not 24. 24 is way too soft for jewelry. Way too soft. So that's one of the mines. Here's Lead. Okay, and the famous town of Lead, which is where a lot of stuff happens, including motorcycle hangouts and all that kind of stuff. Let me check to make sure we're still doing North Dakota here. You're getting closer to me yet. Yes, we'll be there. Sadly enough, the story I have for you isn't so good. Troy, let's see, Tyson from Troy, New York. So we got Tyson. We got Scott Alexander from Maine again. And I don't want to put down North Dakota. It's more like the area out on the plains of South Dakota, where you notice there was not a whole lot out there unless we go after that fine gold. So we're cooking along. Let's keep going. Whitewood Creek. This is a plant, so it's a gold production plant, as opposed to, and that's the other thing you'll find in here. If you don't say you want to look at placer, which would be a surface, or you want to look at lode, which is underground, then you get lode, placer, and a thing called a plant. And a plant simply is typically a processing plant, such as could be a trommel arrangement, or it could be some seepage ponds or some leach heaps for doing cyanide leach methods. That's what they do a lot in here. And so so doing these techniques and so forth require these major plants, and they'll be marked in that USGS resource as a surface, but the development status is as a plant. So you just kind of have to keep in mind that it isn't always a gold mine. It could be something else having to do with processing of gold. Here's the Homestake, the famous Homestake. So this guy is a deep, at this point, a deep mine surface, but it once was so it's an open pit, but it also has associated with it some of the deepest shafts in the continental U.S. down in the mine proper. But it was extremely rich, and it still is. They just sort of ran out of the balance between going down deeper and hotter and moving more water and cooling. Didn't work out at the time they shut down. I believe the price tag for gold was under $300 an ounce, probably down around 180 or so. And so it bumped up really high and then came down after it unleashed from the dollar. And so that was in 1982-ish. And so you have this fluctuation. Well, Homestake made some good gold off of that for a while, and then slowly but surely, financial reasons and ecological extra requirements, regulations, and so forth took all the profit out of the system, and so they just stopped. In fact, all too often what happens is regulators want prospectors or any other industry to continue working, but I'm going to throw more regulations on you, and that they don't realize comes right out of the profit. They assume it comes from magic, instead of coming from the customers for the product And the customers will only pay what the market will bear. So if you push past that, you're pushing the guy into bankruptcy. And that's kind of what happened here. You know, it's just not profitable to continue. Well, that also means you don't continue all the recovery and replacement unless you've got a huge bank account. So it's not a good practice to push beyond what they're capable of doing. But when you mix politics and practicality, it always ends up in a weird way, especially when it's big stuff like this. So this is an interesting series of mines in this whole area. I just thought I'd kind of zoom in over here. Deadwood, that's another great place to hang out. The place I was talking about was, let's see if we can find it. Silver City, Hill City, Custer. So Custer, and the playhouse is somewhere right outside of Custer. There's a lake nearby, but I'm not seeing it. Been a few years since I was there. So anyway, but there's all kinds of lode and placer gold in this area. It's well worth taking in, if for nothing else, the scenery. But if you can arrange and get access to a club or access to someone else's claim and have them show you around, it's a great place to hang out, especially in the summertime. The weather's just really pleasant. You know, it's not as hot and windy as it can get down here, but it is definitely very, very pleasant to go to. And like I said, it's just an amazing blob of gold, as you can see here. You know, some of this continues on over, but we covered that earlier. So, but like I said, Rapid City, Spearfish, Sturgis is right up here. That's, you know, big hangout for Harley Davidson guys. Guess they don't want to go up in the mountains. I didn't say that. I'm sorry. There is some, you know, gold down in these creeks, past producer, surface. So let's see what this guy says about it. But it'll typically be sourced from those bigger mines uphill and come downhill in the snow, if you will. Super fun deleted from National Priorities List. Homestake Mining Company 1995 Annual Form. So here we go. Whitewood Creek Super Fun deleted. I'm not sure what that means about this site, whether it's some kind of a cleaning site and they just marked it with the gold prospects, or whether it's something else. You know, sometimes they'll look at a creek and it's getting overly polluted from these, you know, feeds. A lot of what went on up here is cyanide heap leaching, which, if not handled properly, or if you get a sudden rush of rain like we had this year, it can overtop some of the reservoirs that hold back the contaminated waters before they have a chance to be purified, and you end up with problems. Let's see what this one is. Deadwood Mill and Intermountain Field. Mesa Metal, Non-Metal Mining Company, owner Op Homestake Mining. So Homestake owns a lot of what's up here. This looks like it was a mill, so they were grinding material and processing it down the hill. So that's kind of what was going on there. So anyway, I just thought I'd zoom into, you know, South Dakota and show you the primary thing going on here is over here in the Black Hills. We do have something for you guys in North Dakota, right on the border. The Keystone Mine, gold, silver, past producer. The records show that it was an underground mine. That's an interesting find. 1965 records, 1975. So looks like we've got current data here from the Black Hills Mineral Atlas. Very interesting find indeed. I'd be curious about the status of this pyrrhotite. So we're talking largely, again, we're going into these sulfides and other ores rather than going directly into gold itself. A lot of what came out of the Homestake was actually micron gold embedded in these fine samples. You know, the sample would come out, they'd crush it, they'd find out how many ounces per ton, and then they would direct their mining expertise in that direction, or they'd open the pit on that side, depending upon whether they're underground or above. So it's one of those things that's kind of interesting when you think about it, because that's one way of processing. Then you have all these sulfides, which is a whole nother class of chemistry altogether. So, and we haven't covered any of that stuff to speak of, other than just to talk about. When you get into the sulfides, it gets into what's called refractory processing, and it gets kind of tricky and expensive. So it's not as fun as simply leaching out gold and, you know, dripping out, you know, bars of gold and dealing with the EPA. Each one has its own little pluses and minuses. So that's kind of it for South Dakota. I think that's it for tonight. The more I know, the better chances of me finding gold, says Justin Sanders. That's good. Tyson says, is it good to dig around erratic glacial stones? Erratic, what you're looking for in the way of glacial stones is areas where you find rounded stones as opposed to broken off particles. And the reason for that has to do with how glacial moraines form and what you'll find in a glacial moraine, which is where you're going to find gold concentrations. The place for those are gravel mines, as I mentioned before, but not the kind of gravel pits where they're crunching up the rock and making gravel. It's the kind where the thing is actually full of little cobbles and pebbles and up to boulders, and they're rounded. The rounding tells you that that was actually part of the glacial operation and not just some rocks that were being split up from, because largely the rocks, unless there's a lode poking out, the gold itself that was on the surface has been pushed downhill away from where the glacier was. And that's why you only find flour downstream mostly, unless you're looking in those cobble and gravel heaps, and typically at bedrock, not on the surface. So it's a little trickier. It can be found and it can be done. So I think that's it for tonight. Prospector Jess over and out for tonight. South Dakota and finding gold. So it's kind of been fun. We've gone through this whole series looking at different places to hunt down gold. Again, if you want to look up how to make these maps, it's at sourdoughminer.com, GGM for government gold maps. That's not just the process of how I make these maps, which is pretty simple and you can find just about anywhere, but it's how I go through what I'm doing here and interpreting what I'm seeing. I go through that a bit in the map training, as well as how to customize the maps so you can see and print them out and make that kind of stuff. So check it out, and I'll see you tomorrow. Prospector Jess over and out, hunting for gold, sourdoughminer.com. Catch you then. Good night.